This is Me, I Am Mental, the podcast. A quick disclaimer. The content you find here is neither intended to be therapy or diagnosis. It is provided for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us once again in another episode of Me, I Am Mental, the podcast. Our aim is to provide factual, credible, useful, and engaging information on mental health. My name is Charles Adede.
And my name is Darren Collins, and it's a pleasure to be co-hosting Me, I Am Mental, the podcast with Charles. Basically, today we are touching on the subject of gambling and how that intersects with mental health, as well as how it intersects with us living here in Kenya and what's going on. Our guest today is clinical psychologist Rodhah Kithure, who will give us a little bit of insight about one of her fields of specialty, which is gambling. But I'd like to remind you that you can support us right away by sharing this content with others. Right now, we just like to spread the news about being in the space of mental health and talking about it. And so you can click like and share with other people in your networks, as well as check us out on all the platforms. meiammental.me is our sort of clearinghouse. It's our main place to where you can find other blogs and articles, recommendations, and information about Rhoda as well. And also all the typical social media platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, etc. And so having said all that, welcome to another episode of Me, I Am Mental, the podcast.
Yes, so Rhoda has been here with us before. She is, perhaps to just give her a permanent seat on the set. Rhoda is a clinical psychologist. In one of our previous episodes, she explained what that means. Clinical psychologists are people who are trained in psychology, but with a specific reference to diagnosing psychological illnesses. They sort of stand, I'm paraphrasing here, and I hope if I'm off the mark, she'll correct me, but they help quite a bit in diagnosing and treating psychological illnesses. Sometimes they do that by themselves, just through talk therapy, but also they are quite capable of referring clients to other specialists. Yes, that word eluded me for a second there. Yes, they are capable of, so if a client does need to be referred to a psychiatrist for medication, they do that. If they need to be referred to other therapists, they also do that. So Rhoda practices in Kiambu, but that is not to say you cannot reach her if you're not in Kiambu. There is definitely technology has come to our aid, so she's available online to meet clients online. But she can also, if there is need, she can also come to you in terms of to a place near you if it is conveniently arranged for both sides. Rhoda has an interesting background in sports. At some point we will tackle that as well. She's a sports lady, but she also has experience in providing mental health support to sports people. So it's a very interesting space. Then also she has an interest as well as professionally. She has worked in the gambling industry and understands the ins and outs of the industry. And today we would like her to shed a bit of light around that, particularly in view of the fact that I think there's COVID as a pandemic. There is other mental health challenges as maybe another pandemic. But there's gambling. there's gambling, a perverse type of gambling that has taken hold in Kenya, I'd say, which probably has mental health ramifications, and she will guide us on all that. This is what this conversation is going to be about. So to start us off, Rhoda, can you confirm or deny whether I have presented you in the best possible light?
Yeah, I've even been shocked at how you've presented me. I'm like, okay, I don't know that person, but she sounds amazing. Yeah, that was a good introduction.
Okay. So I think a good place to start would be to know, firstly, how did you get to be interested in gambling professionally? I know that is how you got in there. Perhaps you give us a bit of your personal encounter professionally in the space of gambling.
Okay, let me see if I can start. Let me go back. It's, even when in training you're introduced to, you go through, gambling is one of the listed gambling disorder is listed as one of the mental illnesses in the DSM. Remember I talked about it last time?
Yeah, the DSM, the big book.
Yeah, that big book. So I've never really interacted with them as much until 2020. I applied for a job. They were looking for someone who has sports experience and is interested to work in a gambling sector. And psychologist was specifically asking for psychologists. So I applied. I didn't know what the job entailed at all. They just was looking for someone with those key things. I applied, and when I started the job in December, that's when I realized they wanted someone. The title was Responsible Gaming Officer. So my job was to monitor clients' behavior patterns in terms of gambling patterns. And if I cite any problematic patterns, I'm the link between the company and the rehab center. They were giving funding to, because it's a new company was coming on board, and they wanted to be responsible. Let's say they're bringing a product in the country, and they wanted to be responsible about it, and it can be harmful. So that's why I started getting interested, and I got curious to learn about gambling from both worlds. Before, I've learned about it from the side of the client, but now I got to understand the industry, the in and out, what makes people gamble. Sometimes you'll watch someone gambling the whole night. They're just within periods of 1 minute has placed a bet, 2 minutes a bet, and I got curious, started doing research, started doing training into it, and it's in sports, which is an area I love. So it clicked, and I wanted to know more. But the thing is, for me, I was trying to understand it to be able to help the person who is struggling. Because the more I'm observing the pattern, the more, based on the criteria for understanding people struggling with problem gambling, I could see there was an increase. Within a period of, I'm looking at 1,000 registered players, 3/4 of them at night in their Kenyans, someone is gambling till morning.
Wow, so wait, you got employed by a sports gambling company.
Yes.
To say, hey, watch the people who are monitor them and see if we can spot any behaviors that might be detrimental to them.
Yes.
And so you could see when they're. Okay.
I could see live.
I'm just now catching up. It sounds fascinating.
I know. So my work I was behind. Now I'm monitoring the playing patterns.
Okay.
Live, someone is placing bets, and now those are criteria of how you could find now those, like the risky players, and then you could put them in.
You just call them like, hey, how you doing?
No, now before I even get to calling them, I monitor now the behavior patterns.
No, you actually did end up calling.
Yes, some of them I followed up calling.
Really?
And now if someone would, especially if someone would call and say they want to be self-excluded, one part of self-exclusion is if someone has noticed, hey, my gambling is getting out of hand, I need a break from this site.
Wait, the actual customer would say that?
Yes, some customers will say, they will request.
There's like a link to click or something?
Yes, in the website.
Okay.
It's a whole...
It's very fascinating. Yes.
Yeah, so for me, my work was to monitor. And you know, if you're at night, you're placing bets, 20 shillings, 100 shillings. Every minute, or even some games, you're betting in games in Europe, in US, and then you're placing bets in Asia, sports even I've never heard of, even teams. And then you're finding the whole night someone is very active, and then you're sleeping for a period of time, and then you're up again, you're active. that shows that's a pattern. And you're placing, and then when you lose, your increase is high. The bets you're placing are higher. So those are some of the behavior problematic patterns I was observing. And then I put you on monitor. I start monitoring you. And then now when I feel now it's about time I reach out, I'll consult my supervisors and then I will reach out to the person and check on them. How are you doing? Many of them will I tell you I'm okay. But for them now it was supposed to, because now that shows a sign of a gambling problem.
So did any of them just block you and just like disappear?
Sometimes they disappear from the website, because in Kenya it was the first time this was being introduced. People are not aware. There's no education in terms of gambling awareness. There's nothing. So for me, reaching out to a gambler and telling them, checking on them and looking at them, for them, they'll feel, this is not right. So at first that couldn't work, because you're working in a population who have no idea what I'm coming into play. Why are you stopping me? So also there's the other part there. They don't want the company to be looked at as it's a helping company. We are here to make money.
Right.
So there was that conflict.
Wow.
And so many conflicting issues of, as much as this is a good idea, there's a challenge in working.
Just before we even address that conflict thing is what taught us. So it's like this. It's like I have a lumbering company. We make most of our money from chopping down as many trees as possible, and then I also fund Greenpeace. Does it sit like it doesn't sit very? It doesn't sit pretty, because in some ways, I'm wondering when push comes to shove, between making money by chopping more trees, if Greenpeace was to get to that point where it's telling me you can't chop any more trees here, what happens?
It's probably closer to what really happens. That I'm from logging country, is they plant trees. So the guys who are cutting down all the trees are also ones that are going behind and planting and making sure they're growing. And so in the same way, I'm guessing they're saying we do want these clients. We can't have them falling off the edge of the earth. We can't have them, ending up completely destitute, because then there's no more money flowing. I guess
you lose the clients. So outside it makes sense, because now even the public is educated. So outside even this company, it was a foreign company, and in their company, now the mother company, they had these programs running. So from a business perspective, if you're gambling responsibly, you're a sustainable customer. I can study your pattern of behavior, and I can see what the products to push to you. I can see how to work with you. You're here long term. But if you have a gambling problem, your cause now, because if anything happened to you, the image of the company is affected, and then I'll lose a customer. And the more I lose a customer, that doesn't sit well with us. So
But I like your image or allegory or metaphor, whatever it is about Greenpeace, though, because it does sort of set up this sort of moral question. Like, is gambling immoral?
I don't know how I can answer. What I can say is,
I was told to ask that question.
Yeah.
And it's because, like, I think you know that the way we were raised, like gambling was fairly in the same category as prostitution almost. It was like, it's really like you're a sinner, you're damned.
Yeah.
How dare you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, religion-wise, you find that moral aspect is there, because you're placing a stake for bigger, and sometimes you end up even selling off everything, hoping for more greater gains. It's very so. Coming from a religious aspect, yes, but now on the other part is a very harmful product, because if you're presenting that product to someone who already has an existing problem, that's going to harm. So
I guess I thought of it more like a vice, where alcohol isn't inherently bad, but alcoholism obviously is a symptom of bad behavior with alcohol.
Yeah, like when you say gambling, people even at home, they play poker even for fun. Even when you have a party or what, even at home you're playing poker, you're doing these things of card. Like that, these things used to gamble for fun. There's the fun part that people enjoy, and you find they're placing bets, and that's okay. there's the fun part. But now there's the extreme aspect of it where it causes harm. And like in many countries outside, they are like in Europe, I don't know about US, even US is there, they have put aside a need for, it's called syntax.
Yeah,
So
it's even called that.
Syntax, yes. So it's every company.
And it's not spelled SYNTX, because that is...
Sin.
It is Sin Cities, Vegas,
Sin
Las
City,
Vegas,
and
then tax. Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
that's the one.
Okay.
So where you know you're obligated to take care of the vulnerable people who are being exposed to your products, you're protecting them, you're taking care of them. So there's a tax you're supposed to pay. In Kenya, that is not there. So that is, as you're saying, that's how now when I started working and I could see this conflict, now I started working more in the rehab. So you find some days I'm doing my work in the office, but most of the times I'm working at the rehab, attending to clients now who have a gambling problem.
In fact, before we go there, I'd like us to step back a bit. And so you mostly worked in the sports, in terms of sports gambling. But I think gambling is so much where there are so many. Firstly, maybe very, very basically, what is gambling?
In putting it in layman's terms, they say it's placing a stake for a bigger game. It's taking a risk. You don't know, it's more of a lucky game of luck. To be honest, it's a game of luck.
Placing
a chance.
Placing a stake for a bigger game.
Yeah, for a bigger game. It's a game of chance, of luck. So even though people come in, now what challenge comes in is people come in with this professional way of, they understand the game, they can beat the system, but it all goes down to, it's a game of chance. And when you're placing a stake, it's for a bigger game.
Well, there's probably more than one form. Like some of it requires some amount of skill.
Yes.
Right? So what are the other forms?
So they're different. We have now, let's start with the basic one, which is very common in Kenya, that's sports betting, where you just have to know the teams and place bets. That one is there, sports betting. Now we have the ones now, the casino now, that's another whole industry of the, it's called the Russian roulette.
The roulette and all those things, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, roulette,
I say Russian roulette by but we have so many, we have it's called what?
The machine, the one,
machines.
yes.
We have
the slot machine, yes.
Thank you. We have the poker, the one for the cards. And then now, since 2020, there's been an uptick of virtual. Now even virtual casinos, we have virtual gaming, that's another type of betting. We have horse racing, which is another one. Like, every time they're bringing more products and even, but the most common one and the most one I've interacted with, it's the casino, and then we have sports betting and virtual.
Okay.
Virtual casino.
We could ask the crew, are there any other types of gambling, fellas?
There's one you put your money on the dice, the one with dice.
See,
Rolling dice.
Rolling dice.
Yes.
That's
Is it immoral?
So I can't, no, I say that's a complicated question coming from different angles. I can't answer it, say it. Because I've seen people, I got a chance of sitting down with people and listening to them giving stories of how it has brought them together, how when they come in as family, the games they play, and you hear that, but there is no money at stake. But now when money comes in, now the challenge comes in. But as I say, people can, there are so many, every time they're creating something to bring into the industry, people can bet on anything. In terms of even you find, some of them are just the dark end, but the ones which are common and they're making money out of it, these are the common ones. You find even like, the other day we had these polo events in Nairobi, in Congress. That's another thing which was coming up in terms of betting. So the sports industry, that's where the money is a lot.
Okay.
And the virtual casinos now.
So the vast majority of people are, it's sports betting.
Sports and casino. So would you say, for individuals, if I'm a gambler, and then firstly, and then for society, are there benefits? Would you think about certain things which you would say are beneficial from gambling?
In the society, I've seen in terms of CSR, what they have done in sports. I can contest because I've seen many sports being sponsored by these companies, and they didn't have any sponsorship, employment, even salaries for these athletes. and they've benefited from that. They have uplifted the community, and that is CSR what they're doing. Uplifted communities, help them even paying school fees. There is the CSR part of it. That has helped. And as a country, we know the revenue is high, so that is there.
So by CSR, we're talking about corporate social responsibility.
Yes.
They're mandated to do a certain amount of good, and the kind of good they do is usually also in youth events and youth sports and promoting that, and putting money where maybe there was underprivileged teams who don't have a pitch or they don't have uniforms. These guys go in and do that as the public face. Meanwhile, those are also sort of their
a marketing angle.
Yeah, it's a
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Now, for me, the challenge is even when I was living, it's the conflict killing, the moral conflict killing. Because as much as you're helping people and the salary paying you is there and you're seeing the harm. Because now the more I'm exposed, the more I'm learning, the more now I'm becoming more aware of. Because every day my work was on observing the data.
Yeah.
And the data could tell you a lot of things and make the data make sense.
Yeah.
My focus, 3 times a week, my focus was the data. And it was so problematic, I got really concerned. And I started, in my that month, I started doing pro bono cases, taking up pro bono cases for people who are struggling. And every time I even told the rehab, you get clients, can they direct them to me? I can do the assessment, I've been trained to do that. And the beauty of it, through that I was able to get now specialized training in treating gambling disorders.
So what is a gambling disorder? Like if you were to try and give us how does it manifest? So there's a sort of addiction, that constant need to gamble, even and you're not sleeping, and you're obsessive. And so in what other ways does it manifest?
You see, it's like any other addiction.
So it's an addiction.
It's an addiction. It gets to a level of an addiction. But before it gets there, this problem, gambling, now it's where the first stage you see the sign, where this person is at work, but every time you see them, they're on the phone. Any game, they're checking on the phone. And that's why for me it was easy to monitor, because you're seeing this person placing bets. And then you're looking. And every time you monitor someone, you're having just a conversation, and this person brings in something like, we can place money and who's going to win. Every time a conversation, they bring in a conversation about a bet, placing a bet. And this person now, you monitor their money, the pattern on usage of money, there's a borrowing pattern. Because now, when it gets to problem, the place where it's problematic is your finances, you're chasing a loss. Most of them, and they're always caught with the first win. You get that first win, you're always chasing that big win. Every story all comes to, I just won this amount of money. And from there,
it's like the first win is a hook.
Yes, it's like usually they say it's like that when the first high of cocaine, you've just taken that first high, you get that first high, so you're always chasing that high. It's the same thing with gambling. There's that high you get from that win. And then now after that, you're chasing a similar win. So even though you get this win, you lose, you're just chasing that win. And you have that illusion, if I could get 80,000, I can get 160, I can get even 500,000. And then you're seeing people winning millions every time, and you're like, if they could, I can get there. So you start chasing. Even though you lose, you don't get, in a sitting, you'll find someone telling you, I've lost everything. Even if they won 100,000 in the game, but they couldn't withdraw the money. They're like, if I could win 100,000, I can win more. So they don't withdraw. So that's problematic because you can't stop. There's someone who is gambling, okay, like normally gambling, they'll see I have 100 and say, now it's time for me to stop. I need to do other things. This person is continually obsessed with the thoughts of gambling.
So for instance, maybe a person who is gambling in a healthy way I have 100K, I set aside 5K and say, I want to gamble this. When the 5K is up, I say, if I've won, good for me. If I've lost, hey, it's gambling. I move on. But the other person would then, they will gamble the 100K, and then they'll borrow another 100K, and then they'll be at 500K in debt, but they'll still be wanting to gamble.
They want more, and they can't listen to reason. And even when you tell them to stop, they get angry, the personality changes, the emotion, how they handle emotions changes. And then you find they're borrowing, as I said, borrowing more money, and they can't just seem to stop. And as I said, the mind is just, I want more, I want that. They don't see the loss. So there's this high, there's this rush which comes in between when you've placed a stake and by the time you're getting the result. That is where the catch is. And you know, if someone is now, that anxiety, the rush, the high which comes between you get that win. And many don't
So it's the high we are chasing.
High, and many don't realize that's the high you're chasing. So when it gets...
It's not the result.
The result, sometimes even the money is not the thing.
Okay, so chicken, egg sort of thing. At what point, or is it a mental health issue? Because if you're talking about adrenaline, I mean, we all like adrenaline.
Yes.
You know.
So when it's a mental health issue is when it's affecting your life. You can't function normally. Your work is being affected. Your relationships are being affected. As I said, you sleep. You're not thinking rationally. Your emotion you find even before anger, like the way you, as I said, the way you respond to a situation, you're getting angry more often. So when you start affecting areas, key areas in your life, and you find you're lying, actually the one key component is lying. Very much because they have to cover. So that's when now you notice something is wrong. And I can't seem to stop. I'm looking in my account, I have no shilling, I need to pay a loan.
I go and sell my mom's gas cylinder.
I take it in the excuse of, and then instead of paying the loan, I take that money and say, let me just place the bet, maybe it will double the money, and I can pay the debt and remain with money, and you lose everything, and you still can't. So that's when you find this is a problem.
I have a story that can illustrate that a bit. There's this gentleman who used to, every Sunday he'd come home and assist us with the general cleaning, just in terms of the compound, but also like wash the cars, like give them a real, nice. And so for a while he used to do a very good job. He was very disciplined. He'd come in on time. Within an hour or two, he'd be done, and he was very self-motivated and disciplined. So you never used to have to watch over him, anything he was doing. So you lean back. He becomes like almost like family. He's the sort of guy who comes, rings the bell at the gate, and you allow him in, and you guys go back, and shortly he'll be telling you, I'm out of here. And when you come, everything is fine. Sometimes he'd actually be the one telling you, hey, you need to, this lawn is long overdue, or that grass is, that sort of thing. Good guy. Then he started gambling. Now, like I said, it used to take him, an hour or two to do his work? Now it started taking him half a morning. And then you would find he comes, you open the gate for him, you go back in, you've left him out there, you think he's out there, but he snuck out, I don't know, to go do something. He's left your gate wide open. The cars, he just completely, he was all over the place. And then he wouldn't do his job to completion or do it well at all.
Really?
Yes.
Wait, so how did...
So at some point...
Why would you not be any good at what you do? I don't get that.
And what was happening is he was constantly on his phone.
Oh.
Constantly on his phone. And I think at some point maybe he would run out of money, and I don't know, he would dash to go top up. I don't know what he was doing, but it also meant he was in and out. And now Kenya being Kenya, in terms of security risks, because he was, and then we got to that point where we began to worry that he might even nick things to go and, sort of. So we had to let him go. And that stayed with me. I just thought this gambling thing, it can be, it's devastating. Because, interestingly, that gentleman didn't have much of an income other than this, what he was doing all around. And he was trusted by quite a number of my neighbors at the time. But his reputation as, being, just went round. And so I'm assuming that we were not the only people who let him go. So about 2 or 3 months down the line, he I started receiving calls from him, and he'd always have this story about this, how he desperately needs money for this or that. And he just knew what this was about. So if you sent him money, you'd be fueling the gambling. So you just, I don't know how his life has panned out since, but yeah, I think that's...
It's a classic example. and you feel irresponsible behavior, and then now that anxiety of what's going to come. And then there's a level of when you've lost everything, that period of hopelessness. I don't have anything, and the shame attached to that. What will people think? And that's what now comes in. These are some of the risk factors when it comes to now mental health problem. You're no longer even taking care of yourself. You've disregarded your responsibility. You're at a risk of losing your job, and you don't care of the consequences. You still want to feel in that urge. So it comes from the high chasing the high to the urge. And if you don't succeed, you get angry, irritable, and sometimes even you'll not do anything until you just find this person, all of a sudden they're just angry, they're not talking to anyone, they've closed off, but give them that phone, they're smiling again. Give them even 10 shillings, they're back to operation. So that becomes a concern now. That's when it's a mental health problem. Because now you're no longer functioning normally.
Is there a predisposition to this, or is it something that almost anyone can cross from healthy to unhealthy?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Yes, there is. First of all, being a man.
Then it's your job.
Yeah, we are predisposed to a few things.
Yes, that urge of taking risk, it's in you. Being a man, and that one actually predisposes you. There's that. And then also now you have an existing mental illness, let's say substance use, alcohol, or even a drug. That's let's say an athlete now. Add to being you're an athlete.
An athlete.
Yes, an athlete. That competitive. Yes, that competitive nature in them. Because when you're presented with that, it's like a competition. You're in control. So there's that illusion of, I understand the game. I can actually do it. So the competitive nature comes in. Even when you lose, you want to chase because you want to win.
What about socioeconomic status?
Now that's another one, very critical. Because even based on, now is a difference, based on different economic status, you find from its low, for now let's say from the low you want to win, that hope of getting out of poverty. They are achieving the basic needs, and you're being sold that dream of, you place 20 bob, you can win even 500. And you want to fulfill that, so that is part of
And they
that.
tell you it's just 20 bob. Just 20 bob.
So it's more prevalent if you're at
Yes.
a lower LSM, is that what it's called?
Yes.
Okay.
It's more prevalent there, actually. And that's very hard for them to stop. So even the part of responsible gaming, that can't work for them. Because for them, they're betting, they're putting it as a more investment. I place this, and I'm going to win.
Wait, you've said something interesting. So almost all the people who bet, especially sports betting, at least in this neck of the woods, come from that segment of society. So it means, therefore, that the idea of responsible gaming is a fallacy. It's like window dressing, but you know that it's not going to work with these people.
No, it's not going. With time, I came to realize that can't work with them. Now we have the middle class people and going up. Therefore, them, they have money to lose. Because that's most of the slogan is, you bet what you can afford to lose. So for this person upper, the 20 bob means a lot. They can't afford to lose that money. So when you're placing that bet, that's an investment. But there's another person who can say, I'm placing 5K, and it's okay, that's nothing. If I win, if I don't win. So that can work with them, because I can budget and say I'm placing a budget of 20,000, and that's it, or 5.
Well, they can say that, but does that actually happen?
No, it doesn't, because there's another part. So every time you're meeting someone who is gambling, I ask them, why are you gambling? If gambling is a form of escape, that's another risk factor, because you may find someone struggling with anxiety and they don't know. There's a way it calms them down when you're just monitoring, you're giving patterns and you're seeing your money going or not going. Yeah, so there's that. So there are so many risk factors, and then now, but those are the main ones. And then you're looking if a parent had an existing gambling problem, or alcohol use problem, you're at a high risk. If you start, there's a high risk of you.
So it can be hereditary.
Yes.
Have you ever seen examples of healthy gamblers? People who really are just fine.
I've met them, very few, and these are what we say, it's like professional gamblers.
Okay.
And this is the difference. In gambling, what they count on is the emotion, or using emotions in gambling, because these people are placing bets from an irrational. They're saying like, let's today, Chelsea has been losing. Like in this game, they're going to win. I believe so, and they're winning. So that's a very rational kind of thinking, because you're not.
Did you say rational or irrational?
Irrational.
Chelsea we always win.
It's can win.
I'm kidding.
I'm just
kidding.
giving an example. Not one intended for Chelsea fans. I'm not Chelsea fan. But I'm saying, so the thinking is more emotion based. So you're not going to be rational or even analyze the game and see the injuries and maybe a change of something happened within the club. You're not looking at all those statistics.
Yes.
But now the professional gambler understands the risk of what's going to lose. So it's a rational. Them, they are not thinking rationally. They are placing even the calculations, everything they're putting
like an
in place.
actuarial scientist.
Yes.
That's a professional
Yes.
gambler. He
Yeah.
takes all the risk factors and then
Yes.
does his matrix thing and comes up with a calculated risk. Says this is most likely
to happen. And
Yes.
if I lose, it's okay. So you
Yes.
find those ones who actually are making money out of this industry, but now they know there's a place they say, now this one I can place a bet. As much as everybody's saying I can do this because I don't know the chances here. And the other ones I can handle the consequences. I've seen such. But also as long as you're gambling, there's a risk, because you are facing all these stressors every day. And one way or another you may find, without even knowing, you're finding it's becoming your only source of comfort, the only source of escape. There are people you find they used to enjoy having time with friends, engaging in activities, and all of a sudden, all that has narrowed down to they just want to be on their phone or laptop.
Yeah.
Because that is the only source of entertainment, of comfort, of relaxation.
I've experienced a really actually very, very close friend of mine. His wife worked in a casino. She was a dealer, and so she was part of that culture. And so the two of them actually found a lot of joy because they really understood real well. And so they would actually do weekends or the occasional weeknight where they would actually budget and say, because it was fun for them. The games were very fun and it was energetic, but they budgeted. And that was that was basically it. They knew they're going to lose for the most part, because the thrill was a thrill, but they recognized that this would be a loss, so they budgeted like entertainment, like the same way you and I would go to the movies. Like, well, it's going to bring all the kids and to bring the brother, it's going to be this much. That's what they did. In fact, I went with them one time, and I was like, I don't really gamble. Like, here's $100. Together, we're going to go have a good time for about 3 hours.
Okay.
And that was fine.
Fun.
I can't imagine that's common.
No.
Not very much, not very common. And most of the time, I've had stories, even people sharing it. It's usually now you start as fun, but there's one person you find along the way that big win comes, and they're like, yes, you're having fun, but they're doing it. We call it a secret disease. It's secret,
Really?
secretive. Because when you're gambling, no one knows. You can't see any evidence in terms of physical evidence.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes,
But unless you're
yes.
observing my finances, so you can go have fun, but secretly I go back home, my apps are open and I'm there monitoring my gambling. So you don't know it until it reaches the end. And how we sometimes get it, people even come, or even when the cases are brought, is either they have lost a job, or maybe the wife have noticed nothing is in the house, this person is, am they in debt? And when they're observing, they realize that something is off. Or the person now feels, I want to admit to my employer, I've used the money meant for something else in gambling. And some of them have come in, they want to find a way of an escape. Mm-hmm. So we don't notice it until it gets to when it's a problem. And that's a big challenge. And you can hide it, many hide it, until it gets to the end. That's why you're hearing, there's a surge of even suicide, people dying of suicide, and someone is wondering what's the connection. And majority, it's men. Wondering what's going on. And when you go back, I used to say, later I'm saying, maybe people should have looked at even the finances. Look at the financial patterns of these people and what has been happening before this event. Because this person was functioning well until this happened. Look at the financial patterns. What was going on? The finances will tell you the story.
Right.
Yeah. So even another one is, most of the time we always we assess on suicide thoughts. Because when you've gotten to that level of you've lost everything, hopelessness, most of them are most frequent, it's suicidal thoughts. Of, I can't disclose to my family. It's a shame. And how will people look at me? How will the society look at me? So I would rather just die.
Yeah, I can get that.
So, what would be the earliest warning sign for me? Like if I decided, like, you know, I do enjoy it, it is a rush. What would be one of the earliest warning signs for myself to make a self-assessment that this may be getting to the edge of a problem?
So let's say you're enjoying it. Like you find yourself, when you want to stop, you can stop. You're spending hours and hours there.
So time.
Yeah, time.
Being unable to stop yourself. Okay.
Yeah, time is one very critical. And then you find yourself, even, let's say you used to enjoy a sport, go enjoy a game with people, and then all of a sudden, you no longer really enjoy the game. Your focus is how they win.
The outcome.
The results. And that based on the bet.
Oh, yeah.
You're no longer actually sitting down and having that banter about sports. It's no longer interesting to you. The interest is the win, the outcome of the game.
Okay, so if I'm just a regular dude and I've always enjoyed this, now my enjoyment has changed.
Yes.
That could be my own personal warning light.
Something is off. And then let's say you used to go maybe even to the casino with your buddies and everything. And then all of a sudden you're no longer doing that, you want to do it yourself. And then now lately, because of virtual casino, you're doing it secretly. You don't want them to know. Why? That's another
Okay, so hiding it or making it a secret. If you find yourself just not telling your buddies that you're doing it, that could be like a warning light as well.
Yeah, another one is now when you start thinking of it as an investment, to be honest.
Okay, yeah.
It's not an investment.
Right.
This is, you see, like when they say, like forex trading, you can monitor and say, this is how the market is going and this is the outcome. But this one, you're looking at it, if I place 100, you know, see now when you're placing a bet, in that table they show you the possible outcome of your bet. Let's say you've placed it's a multi-bet, this is the possible outcome. Many people don't look at the money they've placed, it's the possible outcome. So focus is there. So when you lose, it's this you've lost, not the money.
So when you actually see it as a way to better yourself.
Yes.
That's interesting. There's a pretty derogatory way they say it in America. I think they call the lottery, the state lottery, they call it a stupidity tax, I think, or something like that. Because if you're playing it, you obviously don't understand how odds work. So therefore, like, it's a tax on the dumb.
Now I'm going to say something very interesting, and this is no way gender related, but now, in terms of gender now dynamics, women are more prone to go towards not sport betting, but lottery and sweepstakes.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yes.
I've noticed that. Like at supermarkets in America, it's women who are doing that one.
Women.
Well, why?
Now it's because even radio calling for that, it's women. The target is women. It's more acceptable, and it's not technical, and it's more kind of acceptable in the society, because with lottery they're saying the money is going to charity, and women are meant for that giving. So it's accepted in the society, so they can do it openly.
Oh, this is reminding me. Okay, so last time I was in America, like I decided I was going to play the lottery, and I was at the supermarket, and they have a whole counter there of all the different kinds of games you can play. And it's they're sold right next to the cigarettes and everything else that is kids can't get to. And there was a woman there, and something happened where I didn't understand how it worked, because many of them had similar names, like Washington State Lottery and the State Lotto of Washington, etc. And I said something like, if you pick, is it one number played 5 times, or is it 5 numbers played 1 time, or something like that? And there was a woman standing next to me who was she was a little bit anxious, and she was listening to what I said, and then the woman replied to me in a pretty logical reply, and because it was sort of an intellectual question about the game, I just didn't understand. And this woman spun what I said like, oh, that's really interesting that he said that. He has a really interesting outlook on luck. I think you're pretty lucky. I think I should buy. She used me as a reason to justify spending more money. But it made no sense. She was looking for any reason to go ahead and do it. I was like, oh, this person is already spent her amount for the day and just needed a reason. And it was like, oh, that was kind of freaky.
Any reason, and it's still like to justify, to justify, this is why. And she will use that reason somewhere else. And say, I use this money. This guy, like, you're making sense. And it's more, nothing like that.
And it's like we're laughing, but at the same time, it's like, that's legit. That's a real, that's a mental
health situation right there, isn't it? Yes.
I mean, because I think if it was someone who was dirty or obviously annoying or whatever, I might laugh. But this made me feel like, oh, I'm concerned. Like this is not a bad person. This is not someone who's just like, I think it's easy for us to think of as a dirty gambler, or just like someone who, smokes cigarettes till 4 a.m, playing the games, and like, doesn't have has no one with him. He's a loner.
She needed a fix.
But this is like someone's mom.
She needed a fix that day, and
it's like she needed, and so you see like somebody who is in the grip of something. That's why you feel your heart goes out for her, isn't it, to her, because you're thinking, hey, this is, in fact, now that, so we've covered that, and I'd like to ask something else around gambling. To take you back to your work situation, take you back to just for you to narrate to us. So you, at some point, you got uncomfortable because you're saying that there was for you ethically, something began to not sit right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you just, that conversation? It would be interesting to know how you managed your conflict, and why you're such a brilliant gambler now.
Huh? I actually remember the first time, even when I was going there, now you register, at least you try and see, so you don't judge. Try. I remember I placed a bet of 50 shillings and I lost. And I was like, I know, I can't even try again. But for me, when the conflict started coming in, yes, you need a job. And at that time, you need money, you have to pay bills. And I could see the reason, and I've learned. But also on the other side, I'm wondering, am I really helping here? Because the people I'm trying to help, they're not aware of, because outside there is an emphasis on psychoeducation. Educate people, create awareness. Educate people. When you're placing a bet, I need you to be aware of what you're in for, what you're starting, what you're doing, how it can affect you. But the population here in Kenya, people are not educated enough. The population, your target market, then they don't have that level of education, of understanding how this can impact them. And you're looking at majority of the players are students in colleges, in universities. These are students who at that time, they take risk often, and they don't have bills to pay, they're depending on even on their parents for support. But now they're idle most of the time, but these are the target market. But now outside, when I'm in the rehab, when I go to the rehab, I'm seeing these cases, and I'm feeling the conflict became even more and more. And at a time I stopped, but now my focus got fully on helping now gamblers, people who have a gambling problem.
When you went to the rehab, the people at the rehab, are they people who had checked themselves in, or who you had referred? How did most of the people who were there, and I'm talking about people with gambling disorders in the rehab, how did they end up there?
So majority of people there, they have gotten in because of substance use.
Okay,
but now you find out when you screen for, because there is nowhere I've never gone to a center where they're screening for gambling disorder. You'll not get that one. So, but now when I started monitoring now the pattern of behavior, you find substance use, there is high chances of gambling. So when you screen for that, but for them they don't see it as a problem. That was just by the way of getting money. So you find this pattern. Someone goes, starts gambling, and then goes to a club, a bar to watch a game. And then they start getting drinks, and they've placed a bet, the outcome showing they're going to win 5,000. And when they get to a point of even buying for people, I have that big win. The big win doesn't come, and you have bills to pay. You get frustrated, and you start borrowing money or even placing more. And then you start drinking more and drinking more and drinking more. and you're out of control. But when now so most of these people you'll find they've been brought to the rehab either because of job, the risk of losing the job, and for government or for civil servants, there's that part where if you have a alcohol use problem or substance, instead of you losing the job, you go to the rehab. That's the one thing which is there. Others, you find family members because this person has borrowed a lot of money, but no one could see the connection with gambling. They will also always say this person was borrowing money to drink, but you'll find the drinking money is so less than the gambling money, but that pattern will not be seen.
So I think there's a tendency for us to stigmatize people even as like greedy.
Yes.
But I mean, do you feel it's greed?
No, for me, it's not greed. This is an illness like any other. This is a disease like the way you're saying alcohol disorder.
Okay. Is it harder or easier to treat than others?
What makes it harder is by the time someone is coming in for help, there's already stigma surrounding this person. They come to you when they're at the edge. And even committing to treatment is very hard because it's the thing. The one thing which you need for your survival, you need money to buy basic needs, is the one thing which is triggering a gambling problem. That conflict. You see, the one thing you need to provide for you, to use it, to eat, you need money to eat, you need money to pay bills. But when you get that money, it's also another trigger to gamble again.
And money is, I think for many of us, money is very confusing.
Yes.
It's a source of like maybe all your power, but also a source of all your terror.
Yes.
So many of us don't have a very like sensible way of dealing with money, whether there's an abundance of it or money sort of.
I think so now thinking about it, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm just obviously a layperson, but I'm a dude, and if dudes are the guys who have the problems with it the most, I remember actually sitting in this building a few years ago, and I was having a great day. I was really charged. The work I do is invigorating. I love what I do. But for some reason or another, I needed to check on a payment that was due. So I logged into my bank account, and I was astonished at how wrong I was. I had almost no money. Is that time? It had to do with the billing payments and just time, and I started to feel so low.
Yeah, you were
really just inside, just like, man, what is wrong with you? Yeah. Like, you can't provide for yourself. How could you possibly ever dream about having a family because you can't provide for anyone? And it's just like, all of a sudden, all these negative thoughts, nothing changed except for that number there. And it affected almost every single, like it colored my entire outlook
idea
on
of
life.
yourself, isn't it?
Because I think there's this innate thing of like, I need to be sufficient. I need to be a provider. I'm a guy. I'm responsible. And now all of a sudden there's an indication that I'm not. It just killed me.
In fact, just adding to that, I know there are times when even if I have a couple of payments, like I'm expecting in, say, it's not in a very unreasonable time in the future, a week's time to whatever. But my account is running low. But there is funds, and reasonably speaking, these funds can tide me over this period until that payment comes through. At a certain point, there is a tension and an anxiety that just builds up in me, and it becomes like this permanent thing, like it's constantly there. It's not logical. Why? Because like I said, there is a payment I'm anticipating, sometimes with a fair level of certainty. There is enough to tide me over this period, but maybe just the fact that it is enough is not comfortable for me. It's like I want this buffer. It's like I want to be in a space where there is, I don't know what I want really, but so that tension makes money a strange thing for me, because like it's very triggering in ways that.
Yeah, like, and then when you fail in that situation, you fail to see what you're doing, you fail to see the positive things you've been doing to get there, you fail to rationally see it's a delay in payment. Doesn't mean the money is not coming in, but your focus is, I don't have that. And as a man, there's that part, it's in you to be a provider.
Yes.
Provide and take care even of yourself, and as you said, you go down a deep hole.
Yes.
And to a point, is that how you see yourself and the hopelessness, and you sit there and you're so low. And when you actually process that, you realize there's no justification for what you're doing. But you just allowed those thoughts to take over.
Now, for someone who is a gambler, it's because, like you said, the funny thing is they have sort of allowed themselves to lose control of their source of power or significance, because it's money, it's your ability. So it's like you want to disappear.
like let me put that situation where you're looking at the money. What do I have? And you're like, can I multiply? Can I play? And now because you don't want to sit in that uncomfortable feeling, you want to overcome it. So I can go place a bet. Let me double my income.
Because that gives you an illusion of some control, maybe?
Yeah, because you don't have control right now. The money you can't control, the money is coming in. So you want to have some control. That, as I said, illusion of control. So if I go place a bet, at least this one is some guarantee. And I don't have to sit in this uncomfortable place. So I chase this rush to get over this. But sometimes even sitting in that uncomfortable place helps you know, why am I thinking of this myself? But you've been, so normally, for someone who is not gambling, you'll sit back and change the thought patterns.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out how to blame women for a minute. Is there, no, not to blame them, to involve them. Because but shopping, is that a kind of like the addiction to like spending on things? Because that's also like money out, you know, and it can become a problem where you just overspend. Is that
It's the rush again.
So it's the urge to just rush anything new, to just add, but it's not even about the money.
Is it related to gambling at all?
Now the difference, but also there's an addiction linked to that. Like you are compelled to do something because you want to escape from something.
Yes.
Yes. So that's another different kind of addiction.
Okay.
But now for gambling is you're placing a stake in the outcome. So even I was reading another book, someone who was talking about the experience, the lived experience, and they said even the loss itself, you end up looking forward to the loss because it will give you a justification to place a bet again.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's a dead spiral. There is no ending.
No, there's no ending. You get money, the anxiety comes in, and you're like, I have this money, I need to remove it. But no, but now a loss gives you justification of let me chase that loss, so you can continue playing.
I remember you once saying that the brain is a strange and wicked thing. The brain can play games on you. Those are the games I suppose you play with yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's how you're thinking. And you know, I read somewhere, and there's truth in that, the brain is not your friend. The brain is meant to it's not your friend, it's for survival. and it's meant to protect you. For survival, basically. So it will go back to default system of how you've trained it to protect you. And this is how I've trained it to protect me. So whatever stresses you're going through, whatever challenges you're going through, that's why you find you have a quarrel, you find someone who's on their phone. That person is not texting someone or anything, they're just checking how is the gaming, how is it? I've placed a bet and I'm seeing the pattern of who is winning and all that. That calms them down and they can lock out the world. Stay there.
So when you stepped out, so you say you get to this point, there's an ethical sort of conflict within yourself. You see these people in the rehab and you think, this is not working.
Yeah, and 3 months in, I was actually ready to leave. But there's the urge of, I need money to set up things, to set up myself. And I need to fix. Wow.
Sorry.
But so I'm prepared. I started psychologically preparing myself because and that's when I started taking more clients, and I started working with not many but 2-3 clients. I started frequenting the rehab, and then within time they started. Those are challenging. The way they had expected the money to come in didn't come in. In the first position, because mine was under contract, And my contract was first at 3 months and then extension. And even when, after the extension, I started hearing rumors of this position, and people always say, a responsible gaming officer, you are police, you're preventing us from making money. We want people to bet, but you're coming here and telling people.
Oh, within the so you had that conflict. So wow, the other staff members were not. They wanted you out.
In some way, you could see, even though you can see the reason behind it. In the market, it wasn't making sense, but on a moral aspect, it was making sense. So by the time the contract is about to end, and for me already, it was very hard because now for me, I really wanted to know more. I wanted to see how I can get invested in this. And now I've gotten interested in this field. And it's combining with my field in sports. And more I'm listening now, even when I go for sports events, I'm listening, the conversation has changed. I can actually see the patterns everywhere. I'm working with people. And I don't know how to go about this. So by the time I'm leaving, the position was scrapped off.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They dropped the position?
The position was dropped.
They just decided, let's be real, man.
Yeah.
Let's stop this window dressing, man.
I can't judge you too much. I think, I don't know the company, but I think I worked for it too. I did advertising for them. Yeah, well, I mean,
Yeah.
I was, my voice.
Oh, your voice.
They hired me to be on their adverts. I mean, there's more than one company, but there's not many more than one.
Yeah, I can yeah, so I left, but now what I did is, I had so many emotions, I didn't know, conflicting emotions, but how I channeled everything is, I focused my attention to do work pro bono, because most of the clients you're meeting, they have no money. They have spent everything, they're at the lowest level. Even when they're given money, you see even your charge, where are you starting to charge them from? They have nothing. So I started from, like, people would be referred, even people would go through, they'll call sometimes, and they're told someone has called here and they're looking for someone to help them. So I started doing virtual sessions, and most of them are virtual.
So again, I just want to understand. So the people who would recognize that theirs is actually a gambling disorder, they would get to that point that they say, it is gambling, and then they would reach out.
Yeah, they would reach out.
And those are now the ones who you were assisting.
Yes, and then there's another organization I started offering services, pro bono services, and when you Google anything gambling, that organization will come at the top, and people actually go looking out for help. People don't know. Sometimes people are aware, like, I'm losing, I don't understand what is happening. I used to enjoy playing these games, and all of a sudden I'm more frustrated. I've lost everything. So people seek help. And every day you'll find even people reaching out, like 3, 4, the cases started becoming more and more. And for me, it was more of virtual. And then now with time, 2 months down the line, I started offering now, even meeting them on physical session. In the same way, you walk with them through the journey. The same training, I started working with them. And the more I'm working with them, the more I'm seeing how the problem is big and bigger. Because some of them, let's say they're in Kitengela or Rogai, and I'm in Kiambu, and I'm telling them, I'm not charging you anything. I just need you to get transport to come to Kiambu.
But
they can't. When you tell them, do virtually, they can't do anything because having that phone, Android phone, meaning betting, they can't. So you can't help them. You can't. When you don't, yes. So you get even frustrated on your end.
Okay. So this is, I mean, it's so difficult. Is there a way to do like a detox? Like if you were to take the devices away for X amount of days or hours, does that help them reset? Does it work like alcohol or heroin, where like there's a window where the physical addiction can finally go away?
Yes. So yes, there is. It's possible. But first of all is get you away from now. The drug is getting access to the gambling sites. So what usually happens, I talked about self-exclusion. So usually the self-exclusion is exclusion. Okay. You're being excluded from playing. So even though you try to access, you can't. So what I'll do is...
So KPLC is really good for stopping online addiction because lately they've been really hard to do anything. Good job, DLC.
That's a good idea. Yeah. So for this one, so what happens is, for the detox part of it is because I just need that window of, first of all, you stop betting, and then now we can start treating the areas which have been affected.
Well, can you be real specific? Like if I know, if I'm alone, I haven't reached out yet, the red flags are there, I know that I have an addiction, if I can put this away for X amount of time, do I have a better chance?
Yes.
What's that number?
Yes.
What is it?
So let's say the company you're gambling with, right now actually they're required by the law in Kenya, that responsible part of responsible gaming is you call them and you tell them to exclude you for, let's even 6 months.
Oh, months?
Yes, months. 3 days, no, that's not enough.
Okay.
Even 3 months, that's okay, but according to the severity of your situation, say 3 months and above, and you tell them to exclude you, they lock your account. And when you try to access it, they should not.
So it's longer than smoking?
Yeah, yes. You need to be off anything which triggers you. So you tell them to block you, and first of all, no marketing messages to you. They lock your account for that period, and they're obligated by the law to do that. So every company you operate with, tell them to lock your account for that period. And then now...
Sorry, around that, is it so do you have to go to all of them, or is there a place, say, where if you click once, then all of them become aware?
Yeah, now sadly we don't have that yet. Like a national self-exclusion portal.
Because that would be great, isn't it?
The most effective one. It's actually what's effective. Any other company in European countries, even in US, you have that national, like one national portal, self-exclusion. So the minute my name is added there, no company should allow me in. But in Kenya, sadly, we don't have that. So for you, you have to go to every company you gamble with and tell them to self-exclude you.
Yes, but now, okay, let me ask you this. What if you are self-excluded? What about other kinds of gambling? Do you also have to have the will to stay? Yeah, you're walking in the CBD, you're going to going to Matatu Stage, you're going to see a casino.
No, that's a challenge.
Are they all mixed in that way, psychologically?
Psychologically, you'll have the urge. Locking yourself out doesn't mean you're going to stop.
So it's not just the device, it's all the things.
Because I think what you're asking is, suppose I really, really like my whiskey, and I have a problem. I've developed, a drinking problem because of my love for whiskey. Can I survive the smell of beer?
Yeah.
I think it will still. I still want my drink.
You still want your drink.
So what role does stigma have in making it harder to recuperate? I mean, you must feel like garbage, and people probably talk to you like you're garbage, or maybe they don't. Is there a role? Is there a role in stigma?
You beat yourself up, yeah.
It plays a big role.
Well, the question is then: by the way we're talking about it, is the listener feeling worse? Because we are laughing, we are sort of saying, whatever. Is there a way to? Is it helpful to have empathy?
Yeah, it is.
Even from here.
And even for the light note, the way you're making it a light note is feeling like I'm not worse off, I'm not the worst of it all. It's something I can manage. And stigma plays a big role. We have people have created awareness on other mental illnesses. When it comes to gambling, the one challenge I've gotten even dealing with families is they tell me that person is witchcraft, and others tell me that person is just irresponsible or something we can no longer support. And for me, when I'm reaching out to families, it's I need your support system. I need that support system for this person to get better. I need you to be there for him or her to help them through this journey. That's what I need for me. And you find for them, they're like, we are done. Because by the time this person is coming to me, they've been lying. They have taken to a point the family has put, this we can't take it anymore.
I see.
That is the challenge. So, so it prevents the help-seeking behavior, where if I go seek help, people will know. Another part is, most people with gambling problem, you find maybe you're holding position where you're in charge of money. Very risky. Because money comes in and you have their money, you're like, let me just take a little bit of it. and use it. So if I come out and say I will lose my job and I will either end up in prison, most people will come with those cases. So I don't know how to go about it and tell them it's a problem, because majority people say it's an excuse. You're using an excuse to get away with this problem you have. You've asked for a loan, you've lied. And the lying, even people have killed their relatives because of money. They go say, I'm doing a funding for my grandmother, for my parent, for who, so that they can get money for gambling. So the stigma is there, and the stigma makes it even worse. And makes even the problem now stay longer. And the more you don't seek help, the more it gets worse.
And I guess it ends up making people who are not aware frame it incorrectly, where they frame it like, well, this person's a liar, this person is a thief, you know, and in reality, it's someone who is legitimately struggling with an addiction or a mental health issue caused by completely other things, and now maybe they have stolen and they have lied, but that doesn't mean they're a liar and a thief. It means there's someone who's genuinely struggling, and I'm guessing, like most struggles, prevention is, an ounce of it is worth a pound of cure. So spotting the red flags ahead of time is going to be probably the greatest thing for all of us. But if it's beyond that point, they need to see someone.
Yes, that's where they
need support.
You find when you catch it even early, even through prevention, it's manageable. I've heard stories of people saying, I started, but I noticed there was a problem. They just stopped gambling, started now focusing on other areas in their life, and they stopped. 5 years down the line, that person has never gambled again. It's the acceptance is the minute it gets to an addiction stage, you can no longer gamble. It's like alcohol. You can no longer take that drug again. You lock it out. So for right now, what needs is creating more awareness, people to understand. When I'm getting into this, it can be problematic. When do I know the red flags, as you said? When do I know when to stop? And do I have any other thing I'm using as form of entertainment instead of just using gambling?
So is it like other types of addictions where other indicators include completely unrelated trauma? So if someone, as a child, parents went through a divorce or a major car accident or incarceration, these are typically indicators that someone may have a greater deal of difficulty with addiction because of a series of traumas that happen early on. So could we say that's also a red flag or indicator?
It's a big.
So if someone knows that they've gone through some pretty significant things in the past, gambling may not be something they ever want to start.
Yeah, because for you, let's say you've never even healed from all this trauma you've gone through. You've never even found a way to cope with all this, and then now you bring in something. You have an underlying problem. Bring the gambling in. It's a form of escape. So high chances.
Self-soothing.
It's self-soothing behavior. And then when you get into it and you're finding yourself, you're enjoying even more and more and more. So it's also a risk factor. When you've gone through any adversity in childhood.
Okay, so does it also work? I'm guessing there's sort of a cascade effect where, so correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just speculating, but I don't know much about this. I could see where smoking cigarettes isn't going to lead you down a path to where you start gambling, but gambling could lead you down a path where substance abuse comes next. I mean, is it a gateway drug to other kinds of problems?
Sometimes they go together. Other times it's one of the gateway, because the frustration of losing, and you go say, let me find something else to numb the feelings, and that happens. And now you add, because most of the time you find the other. No, even when one stops, there's another problem again. Yes, so it can be a gateway. You find that opens more room to that. Or together, they combine.
Because I also see situations where when you generally are abusing other substances or have a challenge in that way, it probably is appointed to something more fundamentally at issue with you. It might be appointed to, if it is self-soothing or what, there's something already off. So you could start with drinking, and then as you escalate to gambling as part of that whole package.
Yeah, or the other way
Or
around.
the other way
Yeah, I
around.
definitely see it the other way around because I've never drank and then like felt so bad that I wanted to spend money. But I can't imagine losing money and being like, I need to drink.
You need to
I
drink.
need to
Yes,
drink.
yes, yes. I see.
And the more frustration draws you there, and even the place where you have this betting, like you're watching a game and that happens, you want to drink.
Yeah, it's pretty right there.
Yeah.
If you're at a casino, it's...
And then you find there are others who tell you they've never tasted a drink in their lives. They have never drunk. But
Have you ever been to Vegas? Or been to one of the big casinos? They don't put clocks on them, so you can't even tell what time of day it is. And there's no windows, so you can't tell when it's dark or light. So at 3 a.m. and they keep it super cold. So you're just, you're always like, and I think they might even pump in extra oxygen, like you feel great, and there's no sense of time or space or anything like that. They coordinate it in such a way where you optimize your ability to sleep.
It's sad.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
even sleep. You're just there constantly.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same. I've heard of even people talking online. When you get people even sharing the stories. Someone has got in a casino on a Friday. They've been paid. They get in there, and then you find that those casinos in Nairobi, where the drinks are for free or treated like VIP. So no paying for drinks, so you have access to anything. You can enjoy yourself, and then you're living there on Monday with no shilling the way you got in. So, and nothing, and then the frustration of where to start. So the lying out there continues. So inside the casinos, they're providing you with that environment. So because we can't change that, these companies are there to stay. So the only thing is, let's empower the person who is getting into this. We understand even the kids. Right now, there is no regulation. You find even kids in high school are gambling. Yeah.
Oh yeah?
Yes.
So
I know Dennis probably did.
So the thing that I'd like, the thing that I'd like, this is probably, like in many cases, so the individual is left to his own device. Firstly, there's an environment that creates this situation for an individual. Like there are many people who, until they saw that ad on TV or saw it on a billboard, they didn't even associate something like sports with gambling. They enjoyed football for what it is, or whatever sports. Then somebody creates that association, and there is this sneaky way of onboarding you into gambling, and then you become an addict or whatever it is. But once that happens, it's left up to you to figure yourself out.
Yeah.
So there's a very elaborate mechanism for drawing you in, but nobody bothers about when it comes to now you trying to recover yourself, you're on your own. And the entire society is at arm's length.
Yeah. And I can imagine even when it is brought up, it's probably brought up like adultery, fornication.
Yes.
Sort of.
Yes. So what I wonder about is, and this is not just with respect to gambling. I think in many other spaces, part of the campaign, even when we are talking like this, I know most of what we are addressing relates to individual responsibility and what individuals need to try to do. But I think some of the message also needs to go to society. Whoever is in a position to influence anything and to do something about also needs to pay attention, because at the point most individuals are usually ruined and they don't have any support. They don't have a way of fixing themselves once they have. So we also need to manage the information that goes out, what it says, because there is this other side as well. I know in some ways it might sound like I'm being naive, but all these fights, they start from somewhere. It doesn't, or all this, somebody has to speak up. I suppose that was the case for in terms of the tobacco industry.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened with, it took years of people putting up a fight and what for some of those changes to take place and for cigarettes to be made a little safer and so yes, people, in as much as there is personal responsibility, we also need to speak to these guys who are running this show, because that crisis it's actually manufactured.
Yeah,
somebody is manufacturing this.
Let me give you an example. I just remember in 2018, actually there was banning in advertising. There was a ban. 2018, there was a crisis of suicide cases, mental health issues happening, and they're all related to gambling.
Really?
And yes, so that rise came in, and the first thing they did, they reacted as usual, and there was a ban in advertising. The companies, those are closed down in companies, so you could not advertise anywhere. But now, around 2020, now there's that movement of online. Online was no regulation. So as long as you just online, you find those adverts are just sneaking themselves in. But now, I don't know, the ban was lifted last year, but one, for advertising. Now it's back on. Now even the other day I was working in town, very interesting. These people they have a betting shop. It's a betting shop in town, and it's so strategically located. It's located where it's a stage for matatus. Matatus going to a certain location, and there's always a line when people are getting in the matatus, and the shop is just right there.
Yeah, in business we say
Yes.
location.
So when you get frustrated, there's a way you don't have to use your phone, you can just get inside and inside it's so well organic, food, the seats, and you can come in and relax. And it's just there. The marketing in the shop is there. So the marketing is becoming aggressive. In radios these days, they have covered it. We have those lotteries that you're paying money to do what? It's coming like more of what is it called? Like a helping kind of thing, you're sponsoring someone. But now when you pay money, you may get more money. So they're becoming creative in so the marketing is aggressive in radios, in TV stations, especially local, and they're targeting that mwananchi, that person from the rural areas, the stations they listen to, and they're telling you, when you put this money, God will bless you to have more. Yes. So that money, and they know for you, you'll take that one. So because there is no education to understand how. For them, they don't see this as gambling because, as I said, you put a stake and expecting more. And it's the same slogan. You put in 90 shillings, high chances of you being the winner of 200,000. So 90, like 100 plus people place the 90 shilling. Only probability of one winner. But that illusion of I can be that winner is the one leading in. And we have the frustration in terms of the economy it is. So as you said, the marketing is very aggressive. But the problem is the minute someone has a problem, there is no solution of how, because already the society is against you. And I remember there's a day I got so annoyed, I'm at work, and I'm looking at the numbers, and I'm trying to present to them, I'm like, these are really bad numbers. And someone just came in and told me, that's personal responsibility. My work is to sell the product. People should be responsible for their life in a very dismissive way. And I think that was the day I just said, I'm done. Mm-hmm. No matter what is happening, I'm done. Because if you feel this way towards the people you're marketing this product, you're not really concerned about the protection. You sell a product, high chances of it being very harmful is very high. But now you give it to them and it's your responsibility. This person, you don't know how vulnerable they are. Already the situation they're in, either financially, mentally, physically, they're vulnerable. You don't even know the vulnerability level to know, okay, these are people let me educate them first. That is not there. Mm-hmm. I'm just dumping a product and giving you the illusion. You just need 5 shillings and you'll be a millionaire.
Yeah, their kiosk is not set up outside of the luxury car parking lot.
No.
They're not marketing towards the people that are super. Yeah. They're vulnerable. They're going forward toward the vulnerable.
Yes.
The vulnerable people are being marketed to.
It's exploitation.
It's exploitation. And you don't see it because that is not, and they don't talk. And there's no conversation. Because this is something which has been normalized, but behind that, you don't want to talk about. So when you say it's naive, it's not naive. It's the reality. You're just being human. and not putting any filters.
Okay, now,
Yeah.
I think as we wind up, is there hope for people who are affected by gambling, in terms of having maybe gambling disorders, in terms of treatment, recovery? How generally can they seek that help, and what do they need to do to come out on the other end?
First of all, I can see now there's a big challenge per se in terms of even most of them when they seek treatment, and we have said about therapy, going for therapy, that's very expensive, and by the time this person is seeking help, they don't have those resources. So, but there is help in terms of, we have had, like right now, there are like 3 organizations who've come up in terms of supporting them. I don't know much what the government is doing in terms of the gambling part of it, but as an individual, when you realize there's a problem, and I can talk to someone, and I don't know how I can talk to. Now it's a matter of calling. For me, one thing I say, reach out to me, I will direct you to the right people. But not everybody can have access to me. But now for you, go to even the companies, as I said, they're obligated. You go tell them, I need to be self-excluded. There are some who respond very fast, they lock you out. Others, they take you around because they want to understand where you're losing a customer. Most of my clients have told them, I've actually written to a point of calling the companies and telling them, I'm a therapist, I'm working with this client, kindly lock the account. They don't mean so, they actually do it. So when you feel that is happening, reach out to them and tell them to lock you out. Right now, we have support groups, even Gambling Anonymous groups, which are running online. And even when you go online, you get them. Some of them are outside, but in Kenya, there's one running where so many are coming in and talking about what is going on. There are still setup happening. Currently, I can't speak up much about it, but it's still in the planning process on terms where it can be more of a treatment center which can reach out to more people. But when that is done, at least that information can be brought up. But even when you go online and search in terms of gambling recovery programs, prevention, there is resources.
Okay.
And even a place someone can go. You'll find that company in Kenya that is there.
Okay.
But for now, if anybody is listening and you feel you have that problem, my number I think will be somewhere there.
Okay.
And feel free to reach out.
Yes.
I will get you the right channels in terms of how to get help. But the one thing I can say is if you feel there's a problem coming in, self-exclude yourself and then now seek help. And another thing I will keep on emphasizing, focus on what's your support system. If you can't trust them, that's a red flag. Go back to the same. What are your coping mechanisms? How, if this is the only source of entertainment, find something else to do which is not harming you. Yeah, but if you're listening and you listen to this podcast, if you get my number and you have a problem, I'll be there to support you 100%.
Very fascinating subject, and I appreciate the time you spent with us. And for those of you who are watching, we're wrapping up another episode of Me, I Am Mental, the podcast. And if you have any other questions or want to be part of the dialogue, you can go to meimental.me or our various social media handles at Instagram, LinkedIn, as well as Facebook. And let's support one another in this process of learning more about mental health and having empathy for those who are struggling with mental health, and also learn together how to, I think for myself, learning how to reframe things that we might have otherwise framed as something other than mental health, to have the empathy to realize that we're all sort of going on a journey and we're all sort of going a direction one way or the other, and it's a spectrum, I suppose. And this mental health journey is something that is best walked together, and that support system is really important. So thanks again for watching. My name is Darren Collins, and this is clinical psychologist Rodhah Kithure. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you too.
Bye-bye. I'm Charles Adede.